Inside an ancient tomb on Egypt's Mediterranean coast, archaeologists found a piece of gold where no treasure should have been. It was not around the neck, not on the fingers, not placed beside the body. Inside the mouths of some of the dead were 4 pieces of gold, positioned where their tongues had once been. For centuries, those golden tongues remained sealed beneath the ground. Then archaeologists opened 18 tombs at Marina, el-Alamein, and found a cemetery filled with rock-cut chambers, limestone graves, pottery, lamps, altars, human remains, and a granite sarcophagus more than 2 meters long. But the objects inside the mouths changed the meaning of the entire discovery. Because in ancient Egypt, the dead were not expected to remain silent. They had to speak. They had to name themselves. They had to address the gods. And if they could not use their voice in the world beyond death, eternity itself could be closed to them. The tombs lie at Marina, el-Alamein, around 100 kilometers west of Alexandria, on Egypt's northern coast. Today, the area is known for beaches, resorts, and the modern city of el-Alamein. Beneath that landscape are the remains of a far older settlement. Archaeologists believe it was the Greco-Roman port city of Leucaspis, a Mediterranean community where Egyptian traditions met Greek and Roman life. The ancient site was first uncovered in 1986. Since then, excavations have revealed houses, public buildings, streets, tombs, and evidence of a city that once connected Egypt's coast to the wider Mediterranean world. The newly announced excavation added 18 more tombs to the cemetery. 11 were cut directly into the rock and reached an average depth of about 8 meters. 7 more were built near the surface from limestone. Together, they raised the number of known tombs at the site to 48. If discoveries hidden beneath ordinary ground are why you are here, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the deeper archaeologists went, the stranger the cemetery became. Inside the tombs were pottery vessels, amphorae used to store or transport liquids, oil lamps, plates, limestone basins, and small altars. These were not random objects dropped into empty pits. They belonged to a carefully prepared world of burial. Food and drink could be offered. Lamps could provide symbolic light. Altars could receive ritual acts. Containers could hold what the dead were thought to need. Then the excavation team uncovered a granite sarcophagus, measuring about 2.5 meters long. Inside were skeletal remains that are still being studied. Near it lay part of a plaster sphinx. The sphinx fragment is incomplete, and its exact purpose is still uncertain. But its presence places Egyptian sacred imagery beside a burial tradition shaped during centuries of foreign rule. This was not the Egypt of the pyramid builders. It was a later Egypt, a country that had passed through Persian conquest, Greek rule, and Roman control, while many older beliefs about death continued to survive. That is where the golden tongues belong. They were not solid replacement organs. They were thin gold pieces, placed inside the mouths of some of the deceased. Archaeologists often describe similar objects as tongue plates or tongue amulets. Their purpose cannot be recovered from a label written beside the body. No surviving note explains exactly what the family believed, but comparable finds from Greco-Roman burials elsewhere in Egypt suggest that the gold was connected to speech in the afterlife. That idea reaches deep into Egyptian religion. For the ancient Egyptians, death did not mean the body became useless. The deceased still needed to breathe, see, hear, eat, drink, move, and speak in the next world. That is why the body was preserved. That is why amulets were placed among the wrappings. That is why food, tools, images, and written spells entered the tomb. And that is why the mouth mattered so much. For thousands of years, Egyptian funerals could include a rite now called the opening of the mouth ceremony. A priest touched the mouth and other parts of the body or coffin with special ritual tools. The act symbolically restored the senses of the deceased. The dead person could breathe again, see again, eat again, and speak again. The golden tongue appears to follow the same fear. A silent soul was vulnerable. A voice was not simply a way to communicate. It was a form of power. In Egyptian belief, spoken words could activate offerings, identify dangers, summon protection, and allow the deceased to participate in judgment. The dead had to know names. Names of gates, names of guardians, names of gods. They had to recite the correct words and defend the life they had lived. In scenes of the final judgment, the deceased appears before Osiris, ruler of the dead. The heart is weighed against the feather of Martat, the principle of truth and order. The deceased must speak. They must declare what they have not done. They must be recognized. The mouth was not a minor detail in that journey. It was the point through which identity became audible. And gold was not chosen by accident. To the ancient Egyptians, gold did not decay or tarnish like ordinary materials. Its brightness was associated with the sun, eternity, and the divine. Religious texts and imagery connected the bodies of the gods with precious substances, especially gold. So a gold tongue may have represented more than wealth. It may have transformed an ordinary human organ into something fit for the divine world. The body decayed, the real tongue disappeared, but the golden version remained. Not flesh, not bone, something permanent, something the gods could recognize. Here is where the discovery becomes more complicated. Leucaspis was a port city. Ships, merchants, travelers, soldiers, administrators, and families would have moved through its streets. Greek and Roman customs did not simply erase Egyptian religion. They mixed with it. A person could live in a city shaped by Mediterranean trade, use Greek in public life, wear Roman clothing, and still be buried according to beliefs rooted in Egypt's far older past. The tombs at Marina el-Alamein preserve that mixture. Rock-cut chambers reflect local building traditions. Amphorae connect the dead to a world of Mediterranean goods. A granite sarcophagus suggests wealth and status. The Sphinx recalls Egypt's sacred imagery. And the golden tongues reveal that the ancient problem of speaking after death had not disappeared. It had adapted. That may be why these objects are so unsettling. They are not simply ornaments. They were hidden. No living visitor was expected to admire them after the tomb was sealed. The gold was placed where the tongue had been, because its meaning depended on its position. This was not decoration for the outside world. It was equipment for a journey no living person could see. And Marina el-Alamein is not the only place where this practice has appeared. Similar gold tongue plates have been found in Greco-Roman burials at sites including Taposiris Magna and Oxyrhynchus. At some cemeteries, archaeologists have found multiple individuals with the same strange treatment. The pattern shows that the Marina discovery was not an isolated accident. Families in different parts of Egypt repeatedly placed gold inside the mouths of the dead. The custom varied. Not every burial received one. Not every gold piece was shaped in exactly the same way. And the people who used them may not all have understood the ritual identically. But the repeated location is difficult to ignore. The mouth was chosen. The tongue was covered or replaced. Speech was being protected. That raises the question no excavation has fully answered. Who received a golden tongue? The 4 pieces at Marina were found only with some of the deceased. Were these people priests? Officials? Merchants? Members of wealthy families? Or could different levels of society obtain thin gold amulets because the amount of metal required was small? The discovery has not yet revealed their names. The skeletal remains are still being examined. Without inscriptions clearly identifying the dead, status must be reconstructed from the tombs, grave goods, materials, and bodies themselves. The large granite sarcophagus may point to someone important, but archaeologists have not stated that its occupant was one of the individuals associated with a golden tongue. That connection cannot be assumed. And this is where the most dramatic explanation needs to slow down. The golden pieces do not prove that ancient embalmers removed tongues and replaced them with solid gold organs. They do not show that every person in the cemetery was mummified. They do not reveal a secret language, and they are not evidence that the dead were expected to physically rise and speak inside the tomb. They were funerary objects, small pieces of precious material placed according to a symbolic belief. The most grounded interpretation is that they acted as amulets, helping preserve or restore the ability to speak in the afterlife. But that explanation does not make them ordinary. It makes them personal. Someone stood beside each body. Someone opened the mouth or prepared the remains. Someone placed the gold inside. And someone believed that without that final act, the dead might enter eternity, unable to say what needed to be said. That fear crosses the distance between their world and ours. We still connect identity to the voice. A person's final words matter. A name spoken aloud keeps memory alive. Silence can feel like disappearance. At Marina, el-Alamein, families answered that fear with a material that seemed incapable of dying: gold. The 18 tombs also change what is known about the city around them. A cemetery is not only a place of death, it is a record of the living community. The different tomb forms suggest variation in wealth, family practice, and burial tradition. The pottery and lamps show what objects people considered appropriate for the dead. The altars and basins point to ceremonies performed at the graves. The sarcophagus and sphinx fragment reveal that expensive stonework and sacred imagery remained part of the funerary landscape. And the golden tongues show that even in a port open to the Roman Mediterranean, people still carried deeply Egyptian ideas into the tomb. The city itself eventually faded. Its harbour stopped receiving ships. Its buildings were buried or broken apart. Its name disappeared from ordinary memory. Modern construction revealed the ruins in the 20th century. But the cemetery had preserved something more intimate than streets or walls. It preserved what the people of Leucaspis feared would happen after their last breath. Not darkness, not decay, silence. That may be why so much of Egyptian burial culture focused on keeping the person complete. The body was preserved because identity needed a home. The name was written because being forgotten was a second death. The face was represented because the dead needed to be recognized. Food was offered because eternal life still required nourishment. And the mouth was opened because existence without speech was not complete existence. The 4 gold tongues from Marina, el-Alamein are small. They do not weigh as much as a royal mask. They do not tower above the desert like a pyramid. They contain no long inscription explaining who made them, yet they reveal an entire view of death. The dead were not being sent away as empty bodies. They were being prepared as people. People who would need memory. People who would need names. People who would need a voice. Today, the 18 tombs are open to study. The bones remain under examination. The granite sarcophagus has not surrendered every answer. The broken sphinx cannot tell us what it once guarded. And the people buried with gold in their mouths are still unnamed. But the objects meant to give them speech have survived longer than their voices ever could. For centuries, they waited in darkness. The flesh vanished. The city disappeared. The language of the mourners changed. But inside the mouths of the dead, the gold remained. And somewhere beneath the ruins of Leucaspis, more